everyone.
Hey, everyone.
How's it going? Amy, are you ready to learn a little bit about history and geography and geology and medicine and maybe a little bit of battling it out? And
You literally listed 3 of my worst subjects in school. But yes, I'm so ready. At least you didn't say math, so.
you know, there's actually a little bit of math involved in this one as well.
Great. I am super excited.
Are you excited
I'm
for this
really
one?
excited.
Let's see if we can actually get Amy interested in something that I did not know that I was going to be interested in. But it's something I learned fairly recently, and it's because I traveled somewhere.
Where'd you go?
Do you know where I was? Do you know where this is?
Well, there's a bridge and there's some water.
I went
about
to Panama.
Panama?
When I say Panama, what do you think of?
Hats.
Panama hats, which were actually made in Ecuador. Surprisingly. What else do you think
The
of?
canal.
The Panama Canal. So if you're anything like me, you kind of in your head have an idea of what the Panama Canal is.
Yes.
I was so wrong.
Were you?
Yeah, it was.
Teach me how wrong I am.
It was kind of embarrassing because yes, I am a teacher, but I'm not a history teacher, not a geology teacher. Yeah, so there's a lot that I learned about it. So I was just thought, you know, maybe you guys would want to learn a little bit as well, because I think you will be surprised by the building of the Panama Canal and what it is
I'm very excited.
and where it is. So yes, I was there in November. It was sunshine and rainbows.
I was going to say, it looks very warm for November.
It was, well, the Panama Canal is very close to the equator, so
Okay.
it's tropical year round. There was a rainbow because it was raining.
Literal rainbow.
There was literally right there.
Nice.
Not my face. That's not the rainbow.
That too.
But yeah, and by the way, that's my parents.
Oh,
with me,
yay.
which was really fun. So one of the things that I did not know about the Panama Canal, so it allows ships to go easily from the Atlantic to the Pacific Oceans.
Okay.
So if you're thinking about the Panama Canal and you're trying to get from, for example, San Francisco to New York, and you're going to go through the Panama Canal,
Okay.
do you know what direction you would be going?
From
So-
San Francisco.
So San Francisco is over here.
Right.
And you're going to, let's just say, New York, which is right about there.
Never eat.
What
East.
direction do you think you would go?
East.
You think you would go east?
Yes.
Surprisingly,
It's a trick question.
it is a trick question. Because Panama, when you look at where we are on the map, up here, Panama looks kind of like an S kind of lying on its side.
It does. Yeah.
So if you're going to go across the Panama Canal, you're actually going to go northwest to cross from the Pacific Ocean to the Atlantic Ocean, which is the Caribbean Sea.
Super confusing.
So that's just one of the many things that I was like, I never knew that about the Panama Canal.
Can I tell you something else? I didn't even know where Panama was until just now.
I don't totally blame you.
Okay, great.
So Panama,
Yes.
which obviously this very, very important part of history and part of the world right now, it's this very, very small country, and a lot of people don't know where it is. But the reason why it is so important is because of its strategic location.
Right.
So my finger is kind of on it.
Yeah.
It basically is where North America and South America join, but it's like a very, very small piece of land right there.
Right. And like you
Right?
said, it completely divides the 2 oceans. Otherwise, you have to go all the way down around Africa.
Well, the Panama Canal was not always there. It's not a
Right.
natural canal or anything. So before we built it, you literally did have to go all the way around. So really, if you were trying to get from San Francisco to New York,
Okay.
if you're,
Oh my gosh.
it's far,
It's really far.
right? 19,000 miles is like months of
Right.
sailing.
Yeah.
I get seasick. I would not enjoy months of sailing.
No.
And it does look like it is, kind of a pretty quick shot if you just went over land.
Sure.
Keep in mind, way back when, there's no airplanes, there's
Right.
no cars. You're either walking or you're on horseback. So it is also months to get across.
Right.
So it's not easy no matter what to get across. And we're not only talking about how important it is for, us here in the United States, because it's actually an important shipping route just for
That's what I was-
goods all the way everywhere.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I'm sure that you're going to talk about this at one point, but like all I can see when I look at that is bottleneck. Like,
We are 100% going to be talking
traffic.
about
Okay, great.
how much traffic goes through the Panama Canal.
Wow.
Because it's really important for us to ship all kinds of goods
Yeah.
from one part of the globe to another. I mean, we don't produce everything that we consume. Most of our stuff is actually not made in the United States, right?
Yeah.
So if you live in New York and you order something from Amazon, first of all, a lot of that stuff made in China.
Mm-hmm.
How's it going to get to you? You're not going to throw it on
a drone.
It is going to come from a drone from the warehouse where we put it.
Right.
But to get it there, we're talking about a lot of cargo.
Oh my gosh.
So we're talking about oil.
Okay.
And a lot of this is coming from the Middle East, so it's actually going the other direction.
Okay.
And from South America, it's coming across. We're talking about foods like grains, barley, corn, wheat. A lot of lumber.
Huh.
Because
I didn't think of that.
if you think about like the amount of trees that we have in certain places, and it's not just the United States. So like if you're talking about places in Africa trying to build, they might get their lumber from South America, who has a lot more trees. And
Cars.
Japanese cars going to New York, you're not going to drive that car across the United States.
You would
Because this
not.
is a lot of cars to be driving.
Yeah.
So a lot of the ships that go through are shipping container ships that have
That look
that,
like that.
much stuff. So we're talking about a lot of stuff.
Gosh, that
Okay.
is so much stuff.
So if you had to go 19,000 miles around, all the way around the bottom of South America, you would be waiting a really long time to get your stuff if you were
Right.
living in New York.
Well, I'm
Yeah.
also thinking about all of like the supplies that people would need to bring on that 19,000 mile journey to survive.
Exactly.
Would take up like half the space.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's not easy. So this is something that historically, when you're thinking about things that are happening in the past, this has been a problem for ever since we've been exploring
Sure.
the world.
Yeah.
So those early explorers, a lot of them that were going into Asia were actually from Spain.
Okay.
So they're going around and they are looking for things like spices and metals like gold. So a lot of these spices are from Asia. It's not easy to get that all the way across to Spain
Right.
in an easy way, right?
Right.
So the thing is that they actually had they came across, they discovered that in Panama you have a very small piece of land
Yeah.
that you could go across. And so the first European was this guy, Balboa, and he actually he didn't actually
Yeah,
discover
right.
it, it was always there. But he discovers the Pacific Ocean 500 years ago, maybe, something
Okay.
like that. So it was in 1513 that he discovers the Pacific Ocean.
He came across it.
He came across.
Yes.
But at the time, it was still 40 miles of land.
I was gonna ask, how wide? So 40 miles. Okay.
Now, 40
Wow, that's
miles,
really not a lot.
It's not a lot
Nowadays.
Nowadays.
Yeah.
Exactly. When you're walking and you're wearing metal armor in the middle of summer in the tropics,
Yeah.
40 miles is
That's a lot.
It's a long time.
a
It's a
lot.
lot. It's far. Yeah. So they're trying to figure out different ways to get across this without having to go all the way around. So that
Yes.
was, back in the 1500s. They're already thinking about, hey, wouldn't it be great if there was a shortcut?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they know that across that area, like I said, it's tropical, so there's a lot of water, so there's some rivers going through there. So they're going to go and they're going to kind of like investigate these rivers to see maybe one of them goes all the way across.
Sure.
So none of them actually go across, but they find shortcuts through, like maybe we can go a little bit on a river and then walk a little bit, that kind of thing.
Would they have to, like, would they bring their boats with them, like, across the land, or would they have to, like, build new boats every time they got to a new?
Pretty sure they were having boats on both sides. So they would bring a bunch of boats to one side and then have a bunch of boats on the other side. And so if you're doing and going across,
so then you'd walk with everything.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not the first few people did not.
Sure.
Because that would not be, there's a lot of reasons why that would not have been a pleasant journey.
That's right.
So anyways,
Yes.
so they figure out, they map this area, and they're like, I really think it would be a good idea for us to find this shortcut.
Yeah.
And they decide that first they want a railroad. Okay, so that's the first step in doing this, because bringing boats across, your natural inclination is not like, I'm going to figure out how to get a boat across land. You're just going to say, how am I going to get the people across land?
Okay.
Right? So they're like, we're going to build a railroad. So they kind of survey where they think they're going to go.
Okay.
Part of the problem is Panama is, like I said, tropical. It's also mountainy. There's some mountains there. So they have to figure out a way to get across those mountains.
Sure.
And they, in the early 1800s, mid 1800s, all right, we're going to do this. And they do.
Oh.
So they build a railroad across Panama. It costs $25 for a ticket to go 40 miles.
I thought you were going to say it costs $25 to build it. That's where it's like, what? No. Okay, to ride it.
To ride it. $25 back then.
It's a lot.
It's a lot of money. I actually don't have the actual numbers, but we're talking hundreds of dollars in today's money.
So the railroad, it's not in my head. I'm picturing the railroad just went like across like this. But here, this is going like down along the S.
Yes. So this is the Caribbean side.
Okay, and so that's where they would bring their boat.
Yeah, it's going around, and it kind of follows the river a little bit.
Okay.
Because if you can picture what a river looks like when you're in the mountains, there's usually like a valley, and then the river is kind of down on the bottom of it. So you're not really going to build. Back then, it's like really hard to build tunnels. It's really hard to like go through. You want to go around what the landscape actually looks like. Okay. So I lied. It wasn't actually 40 miles. It was 47 miles. And it was probably because it was like doing this little curvy thing to get all the way down to the Pacific. Okay. So this photo, I think, was like maybe early 1850s-ish.
Okay.
Is about when that is. However, now if you're thinking about all the stuff that we talk about right now, going across from one side to the other, we've got right now, you might have one container ship with that much stuff.
Okay.
So if you're going across, you have to unload this ship. You have to move this ship to the railroad, take it across the railroad, take it off the railroad, and stick it back on another ship. That's hard to do. Yeah. Now, obviously, they don't have container ships like this in the 1800s, but they still have a lot of stuff. So they were like, God, wouldn't it be so great if instead of having to unload it, we could just have the boats go across?
Yeah, that would be great. That would be great.
Enter the French.
Nice. Those French.
They are just a wily bunch of entrepreneurs.
Aren't they? They created the croissant.
And you want to know how much money someone has made because they sell croissants? A lot.
Oh, $25.
More than $25. So this guy, Ferdinand de Lesseps, was a very, very famous Frenchman.
Oh, okay.
And the reason why he's a famous Frenchman is he's like, I can build a canal.
Oh.
And he says, I'm going to take the Panama Isthmus. An isthmus is a small area of land with two bodies of water. So he's going to take that isthmus. So if we take that isthmus, we kind of like look at the cross section and cut it in half. Panama looks like this. Okay, so we have the Atlantic Ocean on one
Got
side,
it.
we've got the Pacific Ocean on one side, and we've got
Okay.
like a bunch of mountains. There's a river in the middle. I know this is not to scale, but this is me trying to play around on PowerPoint.
Great.
He's like, I am going to dig a canal, boop, straight through.
Huh.
And that ways the ships can, boop,
Go straight
just
through.
sail right through it. Does this make sense to you?
The giant mountain, that's like on one side of the canal, right? He's not like
Yeah, so if
digging
you-
under the.
Yeah, so basically if you think about like the Isthmus of Panama and you're
Yeah.
like looking down at a map, there's like a big mountain in the middle.
Right.
So then if I kind of cut it to the side so this is, it's laying on the side, basically.
Okay.
But there's a mountain in the middle that you
Right,
have to
so-
kind of cut through in
Goodness.
order to get across,
Okay.
basically.
Yeah.
A little bit of a problem.
Yeah, I was going
right
to say,
there, right?
what's he going to use? What's he going to do?
But the thing is, and the reason why everyone was like, all right, this like,
Could work.
it could work. And the reason why people thought this was because not that long before, this guy, de Lesseps, completed the Suez Canal.
Okay.
And the Suez Canal in Egypt is,
Follow
right
it.
there.
Yes.
If you can see, back before this canal was dug,
Yeah.
to get from Europe
go-
to, for example, either India or Asia, you had to go all the way around Africa.
Yeah.
By doing this, he cut off a huge part, very similar to what we're talking about with South America.
Got
He
it.
made the journey way, way, way shorter. Now, Egypt, so this is modern day Suez Canal.
Okay.
If you notice, what do you see? Like, how would you describe Egypt?
It's pretty dry and sandy. There's not a lot of mountains going on.
Pretty flat, pretty dry, not a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
They didn't really think about that when they were like, sure, Mr. French dude, we'll give you tons of money to do the same thing
Totally
in
do
Panama.
it. Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
It's going to be super easy.
Because they were like, yeah, Panama, when they got there, they were just like, it's mountainy, it's jungly. There's a big difference between this landscape
Right.
and this landscape.
Yeah. So what'd they do?
So, and by the way, I took this picture in Panama. This is what Panama looks like. It is
That's
a tropical rainforest.
Bonkers.
We went hiking through the jungle there, and it is not, we were on paths, but if you went off the path,
That's what it looked like.
it basically looks like that.
And that's what it would have looked like when Lesseps.
was trying
was
to
there.
build his canal.
Wow.
And it's not just a jungle, it's a rainforest. So
Okay.
it's really, really wet.
Yeah.
What do you get when it's really, really wet?
Mud.
You get a lot of mud,
Oh, mosquitoes.
and you get a lot of mosquitoes.
Malaria.
Which means you're gonna die because back then they don't have the medical advances
did not. They
that
did
we have
not.
here. So that was kind of, and you're right, there was a lot of mud, so you have a lot of mudslides.
Yeah.
So this is an actual, this is a railroad that was displaced after a mudslide. So Lesseps, if you see down here,
He's knee deep in mud.
he is knee deep in mud, and they were like, you are not doing what we are paying you to do.
Yeah.
You're basically getting a lot of people killed.
Yeah.
So about 20,000 people die, millions of dollars,
Yeah.
and they did not get very far before they abandoned their equipment, and they were like,
Oh my gosh.
this is not going to work.
Yeah.
However, all hope is not lost, Amy,
Oh, good. I was feeling very sad and lost.
because
What?
the Americans were like, we kind of want to get across as well.
Uh-huh.
Now, keep in mind, this is like, 1880s is when they started. But even before that, about 20 years before that, a lot of Americans were like, we want to easily get from New York to California. We want to get from Boston to California.
Right.
We want to get from anywhere
like-
in the United States to California.
That's
Why
right.
did everyone want to get to California?
Gold, them hills have gold in them.
Hills of California were a big draw. So everybody wanted to get across the United States to California. They wanted to get to
Okay.
California.
Okay.
So you got some choices.
Okay. I feel like this is the Oregon Trail.
This is the Oregon Trail because let me tell you, we're going to talk a little bit about that because here are your choices.
Okay.
If you are a family,
Yes.
you can, so you can go by land.
Right.
You can go by sea partway to Panama and then board that train that we talked about.
Right.
Go across
Okay.
and then get on another ship and then go across.
Okay.
Or you can just get on your ship and then go all the way
Go
around.
all the way around. Okay.
This amount of money is not the same as today's amount of money.
Yeah, I
It's
know.
thousands of dollars. And most people don't have that much money.
So it was cheaper to go around the Cape Horn, but took many, many moons.
Many moons, and you're going to get scurvy, and you're going to get storms, and
Yeah.
you're going to get seasick, and it is not pleasant.
Right.
The cheapest way is to go overland, but overland. But that's still going to take 4 to 6 months, and if
Right.
you don't time it right,
Oh.
things might go wrong. We're just going to go really quickly past
We're just
this
gonna go through
point.
that. I'm just gonna go through that.
So,
You might be invited to dinner.
you may be invited to dinner.
Okay. Or you can.
Or you can go the quick way, but we still have this slight problem right here in Panama.
Right.
So the Americans were very much like, we would love it if we could have a canal there. So why don't we take a look? Because there were all these people. It was not just all these people trying to get to California. And so it was very, very common for people to go by sea. But they were like, okay, we are financially interested in this.
Right.
So we're going to take a look.
Okay.
So here is the route that they were taking through Panama. It
Okay.
was still on that railroad, and then
Right.
there were some, I guess, carriages, horse-drawn. I don't know if they were walking. That would take a while because 40 miles. I don't even like driving 40 miles.
No, it would take a long, and like you said before, you got all your stuff with you, so it's not a little.
And you're trekking through the jungle.
It's not a little jaunt.
So at the time, Panama was actually a part of Colombia.
Okay.
Colombia is the country that's just below that in South America. Colombia was like, should we let the United States do it?
Yeah.
So what does the United States do? Hey, Panama, do you want independence? We'll help you revolt. Sure, America. Well, what do you want instead? In exchange?
Oh, I don't know. Let me think about
Dig a
it.
canal. Okay. So in one day, there was a little bit of a coup, and Panama got independence from Colombia,
All right then.
and then thus allowed the United States to.
November 1903.
So in 1903,
got it.
they were like, okay, U.S., give it a go.
You may dig through our country.
Now, if you remember, one of the main issues that they had that was killing all the French people, mosquitoes.
Yeah.
Enter this guy.
He looks like no mosquito would ever try and bite him.
I would not bite him if I were a mosquito. This is Dr. William Gorgas.
or I just wouldn't try and bite him. Period. I don't care what I am.
Right. You don't have to be a mosquito
No.
either.
Okay.
This guy was famous
Uh-huh.
because he figured out, it's the mosquitoes that are causing all these deaths.
Right.
Why don't we get rid of the mosquitoes? That is a fantastic idea.
Okay.
So he tackled that first hurdle of Panama, which was yellow fever, which they called yellow jack. So they're like, the first mountain that we're going to get rid of in Panama, not that big mountain you saw in the middle, the mountain of yellow fever. Let's get rid of that.
Okay.
So what they did is they actually took control of the malaria by fumigation.
I was just going to ask how they did it. Okay.
So they knew and they figured out, okay, well, let's eradicate the mosquitoes and then we can get rid of that problem, and it worked.
Okay.
So now you are not having people dying of malaria, yellow fever, there's a lot of tropical diseases that mosquito, and they're just really uncomfortable.
Really annoying.
They're super, super
It's hard
annoying.
to dig, a canal if you're itching.
Exactly.
Okay.
The second thing that they decided, so
Yes.
if we're looking at Panama,
Yes.
if you remember, okay, so this is 40 miles across.
Right.
It's the continental divide. Basically, the continental divide that we have in the United States, it's the Rocky Mountains.
Right.
That goes all the way through, all the way down. This is a big mountain. There's like a big mountain range right here.
Yeah.
So that idea, if you remember this mountain that we have, digging all the way through this mountain range, that's a lot of dirt to dig.
What do they do with it?
Well, those plucky Americans were like, let's not dig all the way through.
Oh.
Instead, let's take this river that, if you remember the picture of all those people going and going through let's dam the river.
Okay.
Block the river and make a lake.
Okay.
And then so that way now we can say at least part way, it's water. And then we're going to, instead of digging all the way down on the bottom, we're going to raise the ships up with a series of what are called locks.
Whoa.
So instead of digging all the way this big long ditch, we're going to raise ourselves up
to meet so
we don't have to dig all the way down. We're going to meet the lake and then sail across the lake.
That is pretty smart.
And then in our series of steps, go back down to sea level.
And you have pictures of what the lock is, right?
I do.
Great.
So kind of just to show you, you can kind of see right here the lake here.
Okay.
But if we look at a before and after picture of this is with the railroad.
Right.
After they dam it, you now have a gigantic lake in the middle of Panama. So half of Panama is now lake. And then that lake is draining into the Pacific Ocean. So you're sort of like easily sailing across. And so they didn't have to dig quite as much.
Okay. That seems smart, but then I'm also worried about the people who lived in the areas that are now lake. But maybe they didn't. It was uninhabited because
basically
it was
jungle.
river forest. Okay.
It was basically
great.
jungle.
I'm not worried.
Yeah.
Continue.
I think it was basically jungle back then.
Okay.
And then, so again, this is a cross section of the mountain.
Okay.
So we have this mountain, and then this is sort of like, okay, the French dug, and then we are digging down slowly. And so the French, they did a lot of Americans' work for them, which is awesome.
Thanks, France.
Thanks, France. That's really awesome of you. So that big mountain is called the Calibre Cut. So this is in 1898. So this is what the French did. They removed about 15 million cubic meters of dirt. So they did
a lot.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah,
we didn't have to do that work. But that doesn't mean that the Americans didn't do anything. They had to continue doing the work.
Okay.
So eventually they got it. This is around the same area, still the Calibre Cut. And they got it down so that now all of a sudden you can have ships go through. And today it looks like this. So they got rid of a lot of that dirt.
They really did.
What do you do with all that dirt?
Mud pies.
You make a giant mud pie in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. You just dump it in there. So they dump it, and they made this kind of awesome walkway path thing, but you can like drive all the way out. So this is sort of like a man-made. It's not a bridge.
I was going to say it's not a bridge.
What do you call that?
Does it go out to? It goes out.
Those little islands. And so
Okay.
you can kind of hang out on the islands. That's what I did. I had dinner down there. It's nice. But it's all fill from the Calibre Cut. Wow. They just took all that dirt, and then they were like, what are we going to do with it? Oh, let's take it over here. Let's just dump it out. Let's go back over here, take some more, go back, dump it out.
All right.
And so, yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Isn't that kind of cool?
It
I'm like,
is.
ingenious, I'm telling you. So then, okay, so now we have cut through that mountain. We still have to raise our ships to the level of the lake. So that lake is 85 meters above sea level. So we got to like slowly raise them up there.
Okay.
So we're going to start building some locks. So we're going to, they're wide. Basically, there's a set of locks on one side, and then a set of on the Pacific side, and then a set of locks on the Atlantic side. And you can go both, you know, you can either go one way or the other way.
And you're going to explain what a lock is, right?
I'm going to even show you how the
Love
lock
it.
works.
Okay.
So basically, if you can imagine, you're on sea level, and there's a lake that's up here, and there's a bunch of dirt.
Right.
So I need to get my ship from here to up here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into basically a little water elevator. So I sail my boat into one of these. So each one of these little compartments is called a lock.
Okay.
And it closes up. And they still actually use locks for like in canals and things in Europe. But basically, you're going to go into one of these. And you can see the water level is fairly low. This is still building it.
Okay.
I do have some video of myself going through the
Love
lock.
it. Okay.
But it closes, so it's like a little bathtub. And then if you fill the bathtub up with water,
then your boat rises too.
your boat rises. And your boat rises to the level of the next stair step. You sail in that, close that, and then that is going to close and fill. So you're going to ride. So there's a set of 3 on one end and then 3 on the other end. So you can either raise or lower yourself in these locks.
Oh my gosh. Yes, I want to see video.
So, okay, so basically this is, I'm going to show you a few. So first, let me just show you. So this is this is the ship that I'm on, looking down the side of the ship.
Okay.
This is the gate of the lock, which is going to called behind us. And then ours was not like the biggest of the ships that can go through.
Yeah.
They actually have built a second set of locks called the Panamax for bigger, wider ships now.
Right.
But I have heard in the past that people could like literally be on the ship and then just like touch the wall of the canal. So it's very, very, like you have to be a pretty precision driver to go through. And there's ways that they have figured out how to like protect the ship and protect the locks.
Smart.
There's like people that guide the ships across and things like that. It's all very technical, but it's really ingenious because these are still exactly the same locks that were built 100 years ago, and they still work and they're still great.
Wow.
So going across the the Panama Canal is not just one ditch.
Right.
It's the entire system. So going across the country of Panama, how long do you think that takes?
I'm going to guess it takes like a few hours.
It takes 8 to 10 hours to get all the way across.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's including going across that giant lake that's in the middle and going across onto the other side. It's about 8 to 10 hours. And like I said, it's 85, did I say meters? I meant 85 feet. It's 85 feet above sea level. So you're like being raised 85 feet up, going across.
You did say meters, and I was like, that's tall.
Tall, yeah.
But
it did not mean meters.
Still
85 feet, yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. And then, like I said, there's 3 locks. Each one is pretty deep. You know, they're about 1,000 feet all the way deep because you've got these really, really heavy ships going in there. So you have water. They're not empty when you go in there. You have to sail in them and then rise up. To me, the thing that I find to be amazing about the Panama Canal is that it's like this engineering marvel. Like, who thought of this?
Well, that's what I was thinking, like locks and stuff. Like, who looked at water up there and was like,
genius.
I'm going to get my boat up there.
Yeah, I am just so, this is genius.
It is pretty cool.
So I'm very, very like impressed and awed by what went into the building of this canal and what they do with it. So anyways, some fast facts. We already talked a little bit about this. You know, 85 feet above sea level. It's about 8 to 10 hours.
You said 1,000 feet long, 40 feet long. Deep.
And then, to me, it's also interesting to know that it's 6.5 feet thick.
Is that so that the water doesn't
because there's
bust
a lot
through?
You don't want the water busting through those gates.
Well, because then especially like when you have your ship come in, it's displacing water, right?
A little. You'll see.
Or no, I guess it would.
Yeah, you'll see how it works in a second. It's kind of interesting. The other really interesting thing is it's not energy that we're putting into it. It's all fed by gravity. So you're just literally letting water flow into it, and it can fill in 10 minutes. Which is fascinating
Yeah.
to me. I do not know how that works. It's just all gravity fed from a bunch of lakes. Okay? Now that's going to be important in the future.
Okay.
In a second.
Okay.
So just remember that. We're being fed by gravity from a bunch of water that was in a lake.
I have a bad feeling about that.
Okay.
Okay.
The first ever ship to go through
There she goes.
this guy in 1914.
Wow.
So it really didn't take that long for these guys to build it. Like, I am impressed.
Okay.
Okay, this is actually a little bit of a better picture of all the water from the dammed river. And you can see how much of it is lake now that they congest. So you just, boop, go up, go across a lake. Here is where the Calibre Cut is. This is that big mountain that we just dug up a canal through. And then there's a bunch of locks to come back down into the Pacific Ocean.
Okay. Nice.
How much money do you think that cost us?
$25.
Good old US of A. It was $25 plus an extra $375 million.
That's like money back then.
How much is that in money back now? I mean, money now.
Money back now?
Money back now. That would be $12 billion. Wow. That sounds like a lot of money.
But I bet it was totally worth it for...
It 100% was worth it. Because billions of dollars in goods go through the Panama Canal every year to this day. And it's going to continue on and on and on. So, like, pretty good investment, I'd have to say. Especially considering it is not free to go through the Panama Canal.
Okay, how much do they charge?
If you're...
Oh, I'm so glad.
First of all,
holy moly.
if you are a little teeny boat, actually, if you're a swimmer, you can actually swim the Panama Canal. And like Panamanians that we talk to actually have done this because they have like competitions and stuff.
Sure,
and so,
sure.
Yeah, it's probably $50 to enter the competition or whatever.
Okay.
If you're just like a smaller boat, $1,000 to $4,000. But if you're a bigger boat, it's a lot more than that, up to maybe $500,000. However.
Yeah.
That $500,000 is just the fees to go through. The problem is, if you remember that photo that we saw before about all the ships that were waiting to go across the Panama Canal. So the problem is you can only have a certain number of ships go through each day because it's gravity fed by water and it takes 8 to 10 hours to get across.
Right.
It's not like you have this constant stream. You got to wait for these things to open, close, people to get through. You don't want ships crashing going like the other direction.
Yeah.
So there is oftentimes a backup of ships. Now when we went across, this orange ship is us.
Okay.
So I took a picture of I was in the helm, brig, I don't know what you call it, where the little captain guy sits. Okay, so this is the captain's radar thing.
Okay.
Wasn't really good on the vocabulary of ships, but you get the idea.
Got it.
This little orange ship is us.
Okay.
Every single one of these green ships is a container or cargo ship waiting its turn to get across.
So they just hang out there.
They hang out until they're given the go-ahead to go through.
And how long can that take?
It can take months.
Oh my gosh.
So let's go back to the previous slide.
Because
So
I saw
average
that.
wait time is
21
days. We didn't have to wait because we actually had sort of like a ticket, a reservation, let's call it. But a lot of these cargo ships don't have reservations because they're coming from different places. They're being loaded at different times.
Right, they don't know.
They don't know exactly what date and time they're going to be getting to the Panama Canal. So what they decided to do is they have this auction where they have a skip the line ticket that you can buy.
For $55,000.
And in November, when there was this huge backup,
I remember that.
someone paid almost $4 million to skip the line. $4 million on top of their normal fees to get across the Panama Canal. So I want you guys to think about this for a second. When you order something from Amazon, when you order this pen from Amazon, this pen is not made in the United States. Most likely it's made in China or maybe Germany. I don't know where it's from. So it's coming from Germany, and if it's trying to get to you in California, they're not going to put an entire shipping container worth of pens on an airplane and fly it over.
Right.
They're going to put it on a container ship. So that container ship has to somehow get here. So this is part of, when you complain about how much it costs to buy this, it's because you're also paying for the regular fees and sometimes to skip the line because you're so impatient that you have to have this overnighted on Amazon because you want it right away.
This little pin has made quite a long journey.
It has
It
made
has.
quite the journey.
I have a question about all of this money. Who gets it? What government? Is it Panama?
So right
Is
now, Panama gets the money.
Okay.
Before the United States, I'm going to go backwards a few slides. This is more complicated than what we will get into today.
Okay.
But this red line and
Yeah.
the yellow zone,
Yeah.
this was called the Panama Canal Zone, and the United States actually owned this area. So technically, if you, back in 1960, were born in this area, you were still an American citizen, born in whatever in the United States.
Okay.
So the U.S. put in a lot of money, $12 billion to
Right.
build this thing, and Panama was like, well, guess it also belongs to you now.
Huh. Okay.
However, Jimmy Carter in the 1970s was like, yeah, that's probably not totally fair anymore. So there was some trade agreements and things, and so that Panama Canal Zone was actually turned back over to Panama.
Okay.
So it was a process to do the turnover, but now Panama has control over the canal, and so all the fees and money and all that stuff goes to Panama. So let's go back over to our backup.
Oh, okay.
And the reason why there was such a backup, and the reason why it took so long to get across, and why someone was willing to pay $4 million
Yeah.
to jump the line, is because if you remember, I said that the locks are filled by gravity-fed from water from lakes.
Yeah.
And when you have a drought
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
caused by climate change,
There's not
you're
as
not
much
going to have as much water. And so if you don't have as much water, you're not going to be able to fill the locks,
Yep.
and then you're not going to be able to get those ships across.
Got it.
So if you think that it doesn't affect you,
It does.
you would not be correct,
That's right.
because it does affect
Can't
you.
get that pin.
So
Okay.
a lot of ships go through, and we are talking $275 billion worth of cargo is what's going through there.
Every year.
So right now, the Panamanian government is getting $2.5 billion. Now they still have to upkeep the canal, and they have
Right.
to run the canal, and they have to do all that stuff. So, but they are getting money by
Yeah.
running this thing. So
Yeah.
it's a good thing, and it's a good thing for the Panamanian people. Do you want to see what it looks like to go through the canal?
Yeah.
You ready?
Okay.
All right, so this is that beautiful rainbow on, it was a glorious day when we went through.
That's
and I did a little bit of a time lapse. So
Oh, that's
the
cool.
gates close, and then if you will notice, fairly soon after they close, you can't really tell, but the waters are rising.
Yeah. on
So
the-
as the water rises, you're in your ship, and your ship is going to rise as well. And
That-
once it fills and equals the water level of the next lock,
Right.
then on the opposite side, there's another set of locks that looks just like this,
And then
of doors.
you-
They will open, and then you go to the next little area, the next little bathtub,
Yes.
and it will close, and then it will also rise.
That is
and so
just
one by
so
one, you can go
ingenious.
up the steps.
But there's only, how many ships can do it at once? You said that there's,
Well, they're pretty. It depends on how big the ship is. So
okay, so you could put like
for
a few
us,
in.
there were two.
Okay.
So we were kind of like a long cruise ship, and then the ship in front of us was actually a cargo ship, and so there was a cargo ship in front of us.
But there's only one, like, what am I thinking? It's not like at the airport where you have multiple lines with like
so
turntable.
here there are actually two.
Okay.
There's two here, and then you can't see it in this picture, but actually they very recently, I think it was 2019 it opened, they just built another set of
And you
locks
said that
on
one
this
was
side,
wider.
which is slightly
Okay.
wider. And the reason why it's wider is because now that we have a lot more consumerism and a lot more goods that need to be shipped across, they actually have these ships called the Panamax that are wider, and so they were unable to fit in these, so they
Wow.
actually built bigger locks to fit the wider ships. So now there's like another set.
There you go.
And that, my friend, is the story of the Panama Canal.
I learned so much.
Amy,
Yes.
were you interested in the history of the Panama Canal?
Yes.
Were you interested in the geography of the area?
Now I am.
Were you interested in the engineering that went behind the building of the canal?
Yes. Now,
was- It's fascinating, isn't it?
it really is.
There was so much that I did not know that I learned about.
Yeah.
I don't really, and there's things that I don't necessarily think about. Like on a day-to-day basis, you don't think about everything that goes behind every little action that you do and that affects your life. But I think that, thinking about this, it just gives you a little bit of glimpse of how complex our world has become.
I agree. Yeah, I very much agree.
So yeah, thank you for coming on our little journey to Panama.
Thank you for coming. Thank you for teaching me the things. And you're right, geography and history and something else.
I mean, toppling governments,
That's right.
medicine,
There
gold
was
rush.
Gold rush. We even got to talk
People
about
eating
food.
people.
The croissants is what I was talking about.
Not the Donner Party.
Fascinating that came out at the same time. I was thinking about croissants.
Not croissants. I don't know.
Yes. Yeah. It was
Fuck that one up.
it's amazing. Thank you so much.
You are
I
so welcome.
appreciate
And
you.
thank you everyone for joining us as well. I hope you guys have fun and I hope you learned something.
Yay! We'll see you on your next adventure, Kathy.
Thank you.
Bye.